Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to thank Taxsutra ALP Summit for giving me this opportunity of having an interaction with Mr. Akhilesh Ranjan. All of you are aware that the BEPS has been on the forefront of the tax issues, whether for the tax authorities, taxpayers, or tax advisors. In the thick and thin of this whole progress has been Mr. Akhilesh Ranjan. He has been a very, very tough negotiator. As we can see that the BEPS reports are quite heavily dependent or leaning towards India's position. There is a softer side to you, Akhilesh, which I don't think that many people are aware of. And Akhilesh loves music. So we can have another session on that. But for the time being, I am really happy, Akhilesh, that for the Taxsutra ALP Summit, you have taken time out to interact and share your reviews. You have been involved in the BEPS right from the beginning. And now we are seeing the result that in Finance Budget 2016, the government has adopted by and large three of the reports. The first report is Action 1 in the form of equalization levy, then patent box for the Action 5, and then in Action 13, the CBC documentation. The people are really concerned and apprehensive about all the three of them. But first of all, I would like to know from you what to take from CBC. How do you see CBC impacting Indian taxpayers, and what are the key issues or the areas which the taxpayers should be aware of to be on the right side of the CBC?
Yes, I think, well, first of all, good morning to all of you who are there at the conference. The CBC report is an extremely important piece of recommendation of the BEPS project for India. You know, we have been trying over the past 2 to 3 years to streamline the transfer pricing administration and practice and processes. One of the very important components of that is risk assessment. So we must be able to select the cases which pose maximum transfer pricing risk. We have been making attempts through our normal computer-aided selection process, but that is still leading to very high workloads. And when there is a high workload, you would appreciate that that sometimes there is not enough time for officers to examine cases in detail before giving their audits. So this CBC information, which will be an extremely important part of our risk assessment process, I'm sure will go a very, very long way in helping us identify the cases which need audit, in streamlining our resources, in focusing those resources on the areas that we really need to. So I'm very optimistic and I'm very hopeful that this report will make a dramatic improvement in the transfer pricing practice and the administration and how these audits are being done in India.
Yeah, that's very, very nice to hear. Akhilesh, I mean, what happens is that sometimes what comes out in from the tax policy makers, it doesn't get implemented in the same spirit on the ground level. So, what do you think? I mean, the Central Board of Direct Taxes or the Ministry of Finance, and you know you are involved in both of them, so should take action. I mean, they should they come out with detailed guidelines or something so that the thing which you have said just now is implemented in the same spirit.
Well, I think as far as the requirement of the CBC reporting is concerned, the law and probably the rules that will follow will make all those things clear. Some rules have to be notified for the documentation, and that will also be done very shortly. But I can address two. I think I'm aware of two major concerns that people have or the industry has. One is that how secure is their data that they're providing to the tax department, and that it should not be misused, and how is the tax department actually going to use this data. Will it be used to make huge transfer pricing adjustments? Will it be used to hammer the taxpayers? I think those are concerns which are there in the minds of industry. Let me make it very clear that we are alive to these concerns. We appreciate and understand these concerns of the taxpayers. We are putting in place systems which can adequately safeguard the data security and ensure that this data is kept confidential and used by the minimum number of people. There is work going on in which we will try and we will be putting in place some systems where the information does not just disperse all over the country. It comes to a particular place or some select unit, which then carries out the risk assessment analysis, and it's only the need to know information which can then be transmitted to the tax officers or the tax transfer pricing officers. On the same time, we are putting in place security measures which will ensure that this data which is be coming in digitally through the tax treaty format will retain that confidentiality and that secrecy that the taxpayers are expecting. So I can today assure all taxpayers and the industry and business in general that their data is secure, will be secure with us, and that we will use this data in the manner in which it is supposed to be used, and that is essentially for risk assessment purposes and not for carrying out basing any transfer pricing audit or adjustments basically on this information.
It must be music to the ears of all the taxpayers. Akhilesh, there is one related question. Is that about exchange of information? The impression is that there will be automatic exchange of information with the countries. Now, what does it mean, and how are you going to implement it?
In the context, I mean, you are aware that there is an information explosion actually taking place in the tax world. We are moving towards the automatic exchange of information on various types of financial accounts. By 2017 end, India would be exchanging information automatically with a large number of countries. In the context of CBC, now this report also, because it is taxpayer data, it is privileged data, it has been agreed that this will also be transmitted through the tax treaty route, the same automatic exchange route, and hence it will come from one competent authority to the other competent authority. Since when we are therefore bound by those same obligations under the tax treaties to maintain the confidentiality and the security of this data and to use it only for the purpose for which it is meant. So we have there will be a framework in which countries will agree to exchange this information, the manner in which it will be exchanged, and those agreements that will be signed very shortly with the countries and in a multilateral context. So I think by the time the first reporting is required, that will be in 2017, I think, or 18, that will be well in place for having a very seamless and very smooth exchange of information on this.
If you can share some development in the area of multilateral tax treaty, that will be very, very helpful to soothe the feelings of the taxpayers.
Yes, I understand those concerns also. Well, there are a number of, first let me say that the BEPS outcomes and the recommendations, they are not directly dealing with the issue of source versus residence, but trying to ensure that taxation occurs at the right place and in the right jurisdiction and the right quantity, and that no income gets away without being taxed anywhere in the world. The measures which involve changes in tax treaties, which are recommended by in the BEPS reports, are to be brought in and implemented through a multilateral instrument. Now, the work on that instrument is in progress, and right now I can't, of course, talk too much about what's happening and what the discussions are going on. But for example, the Action 6 on treaty abuse, if you have seen the report, you will note that there are 3 options for countries to adopt, one of them as a minimum standard, and either a principal purpose test or a combination of principal purpose with the limitation of benefits rule, or a detailed LOB with anti-conduit rules. So the work on that is going on. I'm quite sure that it will be completed in time, and that by September 2016 the multilateral instrument will take shape. It's not going to be easy, of course, as you said. Different countries have different types of treaties, they have different tax policies. So, the manner in which the multilateral instrument is going to take place is going to differ. So, we have to arrive at that consensus, and we will, I am sure, arrive at that, because we have come so far in this BEPS project by achieving a consensus, and I do not think it should be much of a problem to achieve further consensus on this. So, by the year end, I think we should have a multilateral instrument ready, and which will ensure that countries implement these measures, the treaty measures, in a consistent manner.
Akhilesh, realizing that there is shortage of time, I have last two questions. The first one is on equalization levy. This levy is not a part of Income Tax Act, and it has been introduced as part of the finance bill separately as a chapter. So, is it that the government is conscious that there would be double taxation and is still trying to levy a tax on it, or is there some way by which the companies can get double taxation relief in their countries?
Well, this levy is actually a quite a novel concept. It's a way of taxation which I think has not been attempted yet. But it is one of the options that has been examined in the BEPS report on Action 1. And the report goes on to say, although it does not recommend this as an option to be followed by all countries, it does say that countries are free to adopt any of those three options mentioned in the report, as long as they do not conflict with the treaty obligations. Now, the fundamental the issue out here of double taxation, as you were saying, all these aspects have been considered. The levy is based on a work done by a committee over a period of time. In fact, I can share with you that the report, the detailed report of the committee, which is a 100-page report, will be out on the public domain on a website very shortly, where people can then see exactly what were the concerns and considerations which led to this drafting of this legislation. The idea is that yes, it is not supposed to be an income tax. So yes, you do not get credit in the other country, but the credit is being given against corporation tax in India itself. If you see the whole legislation, the structure is that if you can avoid the corporation tax hassles by coming to a very simple, straightforward, easily implementable levy, payment of levy. And so that is the credit which taxpayers must understand. Now, if somebody says that, look, where was the corporation taxation, but then that is the fundamental issue which is being addressed in this work. It is already decided and agreed by the world that there are broader challenges of the digital economy which need to be addressed by tax measures. So, it is an attempt, it is a novel attempt from India's point of view. It has the sanction on approval of the BEPS reports. It is something which I think taxpayers should try and understand more as to what exactly sought to be achieved. There is credit, and if you pay this levy, there is an exemption from corporation tax, which I think is a huge benefit and a factor which is giving certainty of taxation to a large number of enterprises. So I think those measures must be understood in the context of that report.
Thank you, Akhilesh. Yeah. Last question. Now BEPS is here, so the taxpayer, I mean the honest taxpayers, would like to know from you that what they should do so that they are on the right side of the BEPS they comply with and pay the right amount of the tax which you said.
I think the message is very clear. I think the finance minister has been saying that in many fora, that tax avoidance now is no longer something which is an acceptable behavior on taxpayers' part. Tax avoidance is close to tax evasion, as I think the minister has said that a number of times. We are very clear now that we are moving into an era of substance, where wherever there is substance, the tax department will respect that substance. But if there is an attempt to go around that somehow and try to bring up structures which lack substance and which still try and achieve a certain tax result, then yes, those taxpayers will certainly have to be wary. I think the international consensus has moved to such a level. It's no longer just India which is doing this. It is the whole world which is alive to the concern. And that was in fact the major importance of the BEPS project, the consensus internationally that these measures need to be addressed. So if there is international consensus, I think world over taxpayers are realizing that they have to restructure their operations and the way they do business in such a way that they respect the principle of substance and they pay taxes where they are actually due. So I'm very optimistic that this BEPS project will lead to a major change in the way business is done, and in a very positive manner. It will help the businesses run better, it gives them more certainty in fact, and I think there is an obligation on the tax departments to respect wherever there is substance in a transaction. And I think we are taking steps in fact in India also to ensure that we can implement these measures in the right spirit and the right manner.
Yeah, on behalf of Taxsutra ALP Summit, Akhilesh, thanks a lot for giving time.
Thank you very much. Right.